When Ghostbusters the video game released back in 2009, it had the honour of being considered, to all extents and purposes, the third part in the Ghostbusters story, which started with the original film released in 1984 and continued with the sequel in 1989. A third movie had been in development hell for years, for a number of reasons, but due to this game's story having input from writers and stars of the original movies, Dan Aykroyd and the late Harold Ramis, it utilised plot points from the original intentions for that third film. 10 years later, and the game has been remastered and is about to release on the Switch. But does busting still make you feel good all these years later? Well, I'm Glenn for SwitchUp, thank you to the developers for the review copy, and now, let's find out. The story takes place in 1991, 2 years after the events of the second movie, and follows the original film's continuity. Following the opening of a Gozar exhibit at the Museum of Natural History, a strange pulse is released that leads to a huge upturn in the levels of supernatural activity around the city of New York. This leads to the Ghostbusters, who are now employed by the city, being called into action. As well as the original four, all voice acted by the original actors Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, Ernie Hudson and of course Bill Murray, they now have a new recruit, and that's where you, as the player, enter the story. As mentioned in the intro, concepts from a penned script for a potential third movie, tentatively named Hellbent, as well as ideas for fleshing out existing characters, make their way into this game, and in terms of its style, humour and writing, you could very well be watching, or more so playing, the final part of a trilogy that never materialised. In terms of the gameplay, Ghostbusters is a third-person shooter with you playing the role of the rookie on the team as already mentioned. You will visit various locations, some that will be very familiar to fans, whilst others are new, and must eradicate any ghosts that you find. You move around the levels following the next objective on the screen. Sometimes the path is linear, whereas at others you may need to follow a trail of a ghost by using your PKE meter. This is used by pressing the X button and shifts the perspective into a first-person view. From here, your meter will react to the ghost's psychokinetic energy and lead you in the right direction. As well as this, your PKE meter will also detect any hidden artifacts throughout a level, which act as collectibles, and there are a few of these available in each stage. You can also scan each different enemy with your PKE meter, which will log their details in your spirit guide. Not only does this give you more practical information, such as the enemy's particular attack type and weakness, but it also gives you a little more information on the ghost's history. Further statistics are available, such as your total earnings, the total number of ghosts you have trapped, even how many times each of your colleagues have been incapacitated. Come on Peter, eyes on the prize mate. Controls take a little getting used to initially, but do become second nature soon enough. The reason for this is that most of what you do is assigned to the 4 shoulder buttons. ZR fires your beam, which you must keep aimed at your target ghost by moving the on-screen reticule over it. This shows the amount of energy the ghost has and is effectively its life bar. As it depletes, you can then press L to fire a capture beam at the ghost, although this will happen naturally over time if this is easier for you. Once caught in this beam, you must slam the ghost into its surroundings in order to weaken it further. There is a slam meter at the bottom of the screen that you can feel by pulling against the ghost's movement with the right stick, and once your slam meter has filled to a sufficient amount, pressing ZL will activate the said move. On top of all this, you must keep an eye on your proton pack's pressure gauge, shown by these red lines on your pack. Should this fill, your pack will overheat and you will be left momentarily defenceless. Pressing R will vent the pack and release the pressure, thus preventing this from happening. It's a lot to take in, although as I said it does become natural, but having to press any sequence of shoulder buttons at any one time does feel awkward at first. For those of you that remember the Wii version of Ghostbusters, which came out at a similar time to the original versions of this incarnation, it was a very different game. What it lacked in realistic graphics, it more than made up for with motion controls. I assumed that this remaster would take the best elements of those two games and merge them together 10 years later to make the ultimate Ghostbusters experience. The realism of the PS3 or 360 game with the immersion that the Wii's motion controls brought, but inexplicably there is no motion control option at all. Once a ghost is ready to be caught, you can slide a trap across the floor with a press of the Y button and must then guide the ghost into the trap's containment light, keeping it within the boundaries of the light long enough for it to be trapped. Any ghosts you catch earn you money from the mayor's office, and this can then be spent on a variety of upgrades to your equipment, such as reducing how much your proton beam drifts to increasing the speed that a trap will pull a ghost in. Along with the pressure gauge already mentioned, your proton pack also displays your current health status, shown by these green lines. Ghostbusters is actually quite a difficult game at times, with a number of ghosts being thrown at you from about level 2 onwards. They will swoop at you or throw projectiles at times, knocking you down and depleting your health. If you lose all of your health, you will be knocked down and must be revived by one of your AI colleagues. To the game's credit, they are very good at doing this, and you will need to repay the favour when they are knocked down as well. A marker at the top of the screen will indicate which Ghostbuster is down and point out their general direction. Pressing B by them will revive them, and it is essential that you keep on top of this, as failure to do so will mean that there will be no one left to revive you, and if everyone is incapacitated, you will fail the mission and be taken back to the last checkpoint. Colleagues can be knocked down quite often when the action intensifies, so do bear this in mind. The original version had an online multiplayer mode that saw you able to take on specific maps, each with their own set of rules, such as catching a set number of ghosts in a certain time limit, and as of the release of this remaster, this mode is not included. Now I did look into this, and a few sources are reporting that this online mode is going to be added at a later date as a free update. It states the reason for the delay is that the online mode is being rebuilt from the ground up. I'll include links in the description to articles for anyone who wants more information, but just be aware that as of right now, there is no online multiplayer. Just as an additional, there is no local multiplayer either, though this was never the case going back to the original game. Gameplay is an interesting blend of third-person shooting and first-person exploration, with a story that links it all together very well. Hopefully the online multiplayer will follow, as has been reported, and it receives 16 out of 20. Controls do take a little getting used to, being quite shoulder button heavy, although you can remap these in the options menu. The lack of motion controls is disappointing though, but they receive 15 out of 20. After playing a couple of hours of this remaster, I went back and played the original, which I still own on the Xbox 360, to see what improvements have been made. The game is obviously now in high definition, and on close inspection across the same scenes of the two versions, the remaster is certainly much crisper, with colours that are fuller and more vibrant, with the original looking a little washed out in comparison. Lighting effects also look better in the remaster, and the frame rate seems a bit more consistent. The improvements aren't huge, but thankfully it was a good looking game to begin with very accurate recreations of the 4 lead Ghostbusters, as well as models for game specific characters such as the rookie himself that show a good range of emotion on their faces. Other details, such as the physics based nature of the proton stream, which bends as you pull against the ghosts and still looks very impressive, as well as authentic to the movies, again just showing a level of detail which honours the legacy these movies created. Buildings and locations from the movies are faithfully recreated, and any fans of the films will get a kick out of entering the grand ballroom of the Sedgwick Hotel or seeing the containment unit back at HQ. There are occasional immersion breakers such as lip syncing that can be a little off at times, but on the whole the graphics have aged very well. Performance is consistent both in docked and handheld mode, appearing to run at about 30 frames per second. Audio wise, the game truly is fantastic. Not only does it have the voice acting of the original 4 Ghostbusters as already mentioned, but it also has Annie Potts back as Janine, William Atherton as Walter Peck, and even a small cameo from Max von Sydow as Vigo the Carpathian. It's clear that cast members saw this as a labour of love, perhaps even closure on the series, and no one phones their lines in. The classic theme song written by Ray Parker Jr. is included, but mercifully is not overused. Something that can turn a popular song into an annoyance in an instant. Just leave the title screen to a DVD or Blu-ray on for a while to see the effects of that. Other music from the movies is also used, which again just authenticates the whole experience. Graphics hold up very well and do everything they need to do to make you feel as if this is an interactive extension of the original franchise, and they receive 17 out of 20. Audio, on the other hand, is absolutely spot on. They even got Bill Murray involved after all. And had they included Bobby Brown's On Our Own or Jackie Wilson's Your Love Keeps Lifting Me Higher, well, it would have just about been perfect. The constant, samey calls for help from your colleagues when incapacitated are the only real negative, and it receives 19 out of 20. Ghostbusters cost £29.99, €29.99 or $29.99. For this price you are getting the campaign mode, which will take anywhere between 8 to 10 hours to complete, depending on how focused you are on scanning all enemy types and finding all the artifacts. Unless the online mode is patched in, that's pretty much your lot. Let's be fair and say that it's a very enjoyable time while it lasts, and there is also a physical version available that I've seen going already for about £5 cheaper, plus look at that amazing box art. Value scores 14 out of 20. To conclude, Ghostbusters the video game remastered is as great a game now as it always was. It shows just how amazing movie-based games can be when they are not rushed out to meet a cinematic release, but instead used as inspiration, and development teams are given time to make something worthwhile. The disappointment comes from the fact that as it stands it has less content than the original game, although hopefully that will be fixed with patched online multiplayer, and the lack of motion controls just seems such an odd omission, as it's just the sort of thing that a remaster of this game should have brought to the table.
Ready, follow me. The others are floating back upstairs. Venkman, you two pull our friend Slimer into a trap as fast as you can. There's a massive bulge in these spikes indicating this isn't just some routine clearing job.
Ghostbusters, the video game remastered, gets a SwitchUp score of 81%. Many thanks as always everybody for watching. A quick thank you as always to our Patreons for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.